Delegates, welcome to the STUC's 128th Congress, here once again at the fantastic Caird Hall in the city of Dundee. I would now like to introduce our President, Lillian Mesa.
Thank you, Richard, and delegates, visitors and guests, welcome to Congress. Can I please note the following? Delegates are encouraged to use the hashtag STUC25 when posting on socials. Daily Congress sessions are being recorded and will be available at the end of each day on the STUC YouTube channel. Delegates can again follow the live decisions of Congress on the STUC website. Visit the Congress 25 page to follow the link. Delegates, please note we have allocated dressing room 3 as the prayer room and dressing room 4 as the quiet room. Please ask stewards or a member of the STU staff for directions if required. Can I also remind delegation leaders that they must keep their voting cards in their possession throughout the duration of Congress. If any delegation leader has not picked up their voting cards, can they please do so at the reception desk? Delegations cannot participate in a card vote without your voting cards. Only delegation leaders can collect cards from the STUC reception. Congress, we're moving now to our civic welcome, and I would like to welcome Councillor Bill Campbell, Lord Provost of Dundee City Council, to Congress and invite Bill to give his civic welcome. Welcome, Bill.
Well, good morning, everyone. President Lillian Mesa, delegates, a very warm welcome to Dundee and to your 128th Congress. I'm aware some of you may have made a weekend out of the Congress, coming to Dundee on Friday or Saturday, perhaps to enjoy our hospitality, our many places of cultural activity, to see a play at Dundee Rep, or maybe even come up this weekend to see some sporting activity, which I believe was going on in the city. I'm delighted that you have once again chosen to hold your Congress in the great city of Dundee, and in particular in the magnificent surroundings of the Caird Hall. This building wasn't even in the planning stages when STUC was founded. Work starting as it did on this site in 1914, and after the interruption of the First World War, it was finally completed in 1923. I can just remember that no more. This emerald on the chain of office was part of a button pushed to lay a founding stone, and the emerald was then gifted to the city and incorporated into the already existing chain of office for the Lord Provost. The Caird Hall has always been a proud centre for Dundee, built on behalf of the then Town Council and designed by the renowned Dundee City architect James Thompson. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, this building was used as a mass vaccination centre operated by NHS Tayside, and in just 6 months of 2021, 135,000 vaccinations were administered here. The pandemic and its implications have a long tail, and you in the trade union movement in this country will know very well how that has affected the workforce, terms and conditions, and the wider economy, all areas that I suspect you will be debating over the next couple of days. Despite your very busy and very important work schedule, I suggest that from time to time, while you're here, you might want to take a look around at this wonderful city and the leisure and cultural opportunities Dundee has to offer. If you haven't yet visited the award-winning V&A, now's your chance. It's just across the road. Also, you can engage with the social, political and working life of the city during the 19th and early 20th centuries at Dundee's Verdant Works Museum, which offers a glimpse into our industrial past. Now, as you'd imagine, we have lots of restaurants to suit hospitality of every taste, pubs of every description, shopping, and even an urban beach, which you might want to enjoy. Again, just across the road. Whatever you choose to do during your stay, I commend Dundee and all its attractions to you and hope that you enjoy Congress and your time in this city. Please accept my appreciation for choosing Dundee. We are always delighted to welcome you. I hope you have a fruitful and rewarding annual Congress. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Provost, for that warm welcome. And can I give you this small gift as appreciation for your welcome to Dundee? Thank you. Congress, can we move to the Trades Welcome? And I would like to welcome Stuart Fairweather, Chair of Dundee Trades Union Council, to Congress and invite Stuart to give the Trades Welcome. Thank you, Stuart.
Congress President Ros, welcome again to Scotland's sunniest city. It's important, I think, to, before saying a few words, note the leadership that is given by women in our movement, and it's particularly important to state that in the city of Dundee. So thanks to Ros and thanks to Lillian. I want to make a welcome to all delegates, and I want to make a welcome in particular to first-time delegates. The STUC is indeed an important place for our discussions. For those of you that were here last year, you'll note that it's the same wee baldy white cis guy that's doing the introduction. You might also notice it's the same T-shirt that I had on last year. There's a couple of reasons for that. Dundee Trades Council, similar to last year, is hosting the STUC Festival. That's STUC, O-O-T. You can find us on Facebook. As part of the festival last year, we showed the film Pride. And the purpose of showing that film was to illustrate that the gay and lesbian community in London had showed support for the miners during the miners' strike. And for those that watched the film and for those that were involved in that historical moment of the movement, you'll also realise that the miners then showed support for the lesbian and gay community. They showed support for them in standing up against prejudice, bigotry and hatred. It's an important lesson then, it's an important lesson now. So our Trades Council makes it clear consistently that we support the diversity of the movement. Indeed, Mike and others have told me next year it'll be somebody else that's marking the introduction, or next time that Congress is here at least. But one thing I've said before, and I want to say it again, is when you see from this vantage point Congress, you realise what an impressive bunch that you are. An impressive bunch collectively, an impressive bunch in all your diversity. The STUC is at its best, I would suggest, when it's supporting those that are in dispute. And Mike Arnott, our secretary, told me that I had to make one at least historical point. The historical point I want to make isn't from hundreds of years ago, it's from 2022. It was in this hall that on hearing the campus unions from Dundee University, you were the first to make clear that the management of that institution were rogue employers. It was when the workers blew the whistle, you made it clear they were rogue employers. Now the Scottish Government and others are catching up. This week you'll hear from the campus unions again. They'll explain that the jobs of 700 employees are under threat. But that isn't the worst of it. You'll hear that the future of the institution itself is under threat. Happily, Congress, cleaners, lecturers, technicians, support workers, workers of all kinds are taking action against them rogue employers. They're acting in diversity, they're acting in unity to save that institution for the city, and they will look for your support. Lastly, Congress, we live in times when the right are trying to divide our movement by turning the clock back. They're trying to divide our movement by sowing the seeds of social conservatism. We need to resist that. We need to make it clear that we, here in Dundee, here at Congress, oppose prejudice, bigotry and hatred. I want to thank in particular the STUC's LGBT+ Workers Committee for their recent statement on the ruling from the Supreme Court. And I want to do two things lastly. I want again to welcome all delegates to Congress, and I want in particular to welcome trans comrades to this Congress. President, Congress, have a great time in Dundee. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stuart.
Congress, I now invite Lillian Macer, President of Congress for 2025, to give her address.
Thanks very much, Richard, and thank you, Congress. Congress, can I firstly say what a great honour it is to address you this morning as your President, and thank you to my General Council colleagues for their faith in me and electing me as your President. The past year has been a real privilege for me representing the trade union movement in Scotland, representing members in their workplaces, on picket lines, on demonstrations, and holding the Scottish Government to account on our wide-ranging agenda. One of the highlights of my year was attending the Equalities Conferences, ensuring that the Scottish trade union movement continues to have at its core the advancement of our equalities work. In my presidential year, we saw the election of a Labour government, something that most of us in this room welcomed, the promise of the Employment Rights Bill that will potentially see real tangible benefits for thousands of workers right here in Scotland. We hoped the Tory austerity agenda was consigned to the bin. Labour values that would put our people, our communities at the heart of an economic recovery, that would value public services and reward those public sector workers who deliver them. We voted for change. That means direct investment into public services and social security via tax increases on wealth, on property and on assets. Instead, we see a Labour government lurching to the right with eye-watering cuts to welfare, plunging more families into poverty, increased need for food banks and scapegoating disabled people as a drain on the public purse. Congress, we know that being in government requires tough choices, and we know that we are not short of challenges. A cost of living crisis, a climate emergency, a housing emergency, massive cuts to public services, but the lack of political will both at Holyrood and Westminster to tackle these challenges is staggering. Our public services provide our communities opportunities and a safety net when they need it, like education, health and social care, environmental services, and so much more. They are essential to the very fabric of our society. We need significant investment to support the most vulnerable within our communities in Scotland. On the one hand, we see the Scottish Government praise our dedicated public sector workers, working for communities and supporting the vulnerable. But they are presiding over yet another year of pay falling behind as many are pushed into in-work poverty and hardship. Their rhetoric versus the reality, with a lack of action, does not compute. We have the longest NHS waiting list since devolution. The National Care Service promised but not delivered. Care workers' sectoral bargain promised but not delivered. And after taking the brunt of cuts for over 15 years, local government is having an existential crisis. Congress, colleges are struggling, police support staff jobs are being cut. Scottish Water is subject to backdoor privatisation, and near bankrupt universities are having to be bailed out by government. Libraries and leisure facilities are closing across the country. Congress, we need a serious debate about public services in Scotland. What quality of services do Scots want, and how are we willing to pay for them? And there was Congress, another election in my presidential year. The US elected Trump. And Congress, who would have thought a US Republican president, rather than a communist revolution, would have brought the capitalist system into terminal crisis? These are uncertain times, right enough. During the year, I was delighted to speak at the Unite rally in Grangemouth, workers rightfully standing up for the right to work and for the local community that depends on that site. Let's be in no doubt, the failure to create decent green jobs in communities across Scotland over 2 decades and the complete transfer of ownership of energy and industry to multinational companies has been a disaster. Unite have set out a vision, a viable alternative to the closure of the refinery, an alternative that would retain jobs, economic stability and Scotland's place within the industry. I could not have written this address to you this morning, Congress, without mentioning the atrocities that we have witnessed in Gaza and continue to witness. We must demand an end to the killing and the horrific scenes that we have seen. The majority of those that have been killed are women and children, health workers seen as legitimate targets alongside journalists as well as innocent civilians. Truly horrifying. We open our Congress today on International Workers' Memorial Day, remembering all those workers across the world killed and injured, including the 15 health workers killed in Gaza by the Israeli military and buried in a mass grave. And Congress, as we always do, we reaffirm our commitment to fight for the living. The next few days, Congress, is our opportunity to set out our vision for a fairer, more equal Scotland, one that puts investment in public services at its heart. And finally, Congress, I want to thank all of those people who supported my journey in the movement, my friends, my family, my husband Ian, my 2 sons, David and Scott, and my daughter Ainsley. And a special mention to my mum and dad and my sister Tricia, who helped take care of my children to allow me to pursue my passion in the movement. And of course, to my Unison family and our fantastic General Secretary, Christina McInee, thank you. And thanks also to the brilliant STUC staff who day in and day out support the movement in Scotland and who have been fantastic supporting me through my year this year. To all delegates, visitors and guests, I hope you have a great Congress. I know I will, but with your help, I know I will. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great Congress.
Thanks, Lillian, for that brilliant speech. I now call on Wilma Brown to move the vote of thanks.
Glasses on, glasses off. President, Congress, Wilma Brown, Chair of the Unison Scottish Health Committee, Member of Unison Health Service Group Executive and career-long activist in the NHS and social care. Congress, I'm very proud of the positions I hold in Unison and privileged to represent members across the NHS and social care. But today, I feel extremely honoured to be here talking to you all about our STU President for 24-25, a friend and ally to many, the one and only Lil. I'm sure we've all heard people talking about working class heroes, and Lillian is the complete epitome of a true working class hero. A warrior woman who has stood up for members in public services for well over 20 years. Whether her fight is for a sole member in need of a bit of good old-fashioned trade union muscle, or taking on a board to bring the PFI contracts back, and so we don't waste all of that money that was going out in interest. It was like buying a house on a credit card. But she does it all in the same methodical way, and she ensures victory. From the start of her journey in the NHS as a catering assistant, Lillian championed for our lowest members, improving T's and C's, negotiating better pay deals, and ensuring that all members of staff were valued and given the recognition they deserved as part of the one team across the NHS. Like many friends, colleagues and Lillian's family have heard, she didn't remain a catering assistant for very long, and apparently she trained to be a cook. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I've never witnessed any evidence of that skill. And I think it's been a very long time since her family did. And what a fabulous, supportive family Lillian has. A real team, the dream team. Her dear husband, Ian, gets his sleeves up, rolled up, takes on the running of the home, always at Lillian's beck and call, ensuring that she's being kept fed and watered appropriately. They work wonderfully well together, a well-oiled machine, you might say. Lillian comes and goes as she travels all over the UK and beyond, while Ian holds the fort. Lillian doesn't even mind that Ian goes off to play golf or travel with his beloved Tartan Army, just as long as he's done the housework, got the shopping in, and got all our meals prepared and left in the fridge while he's away. And Lillian's children and grandchildren are also used to her being away, but she does love to make up for lost time when she's home. She enjoys family holidays and family gatherings when Ian organises them. And I could stand here for hours talking about the amazing, groundbreaking work Lillian has been involved in over the years, but we just don't have time. But I do know that whether it's the work around the Fair Work Convention or guiding the Unison report on the National Care Service, Lillian approaches any piece of work with the same motivation and enthusiasm to make a difference to workers and citizens in our public services. She's an engaging leader. She makes people feel valued. She does all of this from a truly genuine place, making instant, effortless connections. She teaches the value of hard work, integrity and passion that we all feel, whilst encouraging others to become involved. She makes the changes necessary and works as part of the team. Her unwavering commitment to improving the life of others through our movement is truly inspiring. As Unison activists, Lillian and I have worked together for well over 20 years, and she has made me feel so proud of her many achievements, graduating from university, becoming Scottish Convener, Chair of the Health Service Group Executive, and now Unison Scottish Secretary, alongside her presidential year. And much, much more, but the thing I'm most proud about for Lillian is the immeasurable positive impact she makes on the life of others on a daily basis. On behalf of everyone here, thank you for being you. A strong, inspirational woman, a fantastic role model, but most of all, for being my friend. There are many people, especially me, who are better versions of themselves because of you. Thank you, Lillian.
Thanks very much, Wilma, and all of that is true, and more. Colleagues, can I move us on the agenda and move now to the Standing Orders report? Delegates were issued with the first copy of the Standing Orders report and provided the opportunity to ask any questions around that. Congress, I will now invite Willie Docherty, Chair of the Standing Orders Committee, to move the report number 1 and second Standing Orders report. Thank you, Willie.
Presenting the second Standing Orders report. Congress, the first report of the Standing Orders Committee was included in the Congress wallets which were distributed at registration. The first report contains essential information on guidance and procedure. It's important that every delegate is aware of the contents of this report. Please note that I am now giving the second report of the Standing Orders Committee. When I have finished this report, the President will call for the endorsement of both the first and second reports. I would particularly draw your attention to the updated order of business which was given out in the delegate packs. It's important that this order of business is now used, as it contains the following changes to the order of business. Motions 8 and 9 will now form part of Composite S, support for local and regional just transition campaigns. Motions 22 and 23 will now form part of Composite E, growing Scotland's railways and GBR. The amendment to motion 88, let's talk about assisted dying, has now been accepted. Composite C, rebuilding our public services, will be moved by unison. Delegates will already have received a copy of the Composites and Amended Motions booklet. Please note that delegates will also have received a copy of the updated Amended Motions and Composites booklet. That sentence was twice in there. I would ask delegates to note that redrafted Composite E, growing Scotland's railways and GBR, redrafted Composite I, neurodiversity in the workplace, redrafted Composite J, suicide and mental health prevention and awareness, and Composite S, support for local and regional just transition campaigns, were issued to delegation leaders on Sunday the 27th of April. Copies have been issued to delegates this morning. Composite D, ethical pharmaceutical practices, and Composite F, NHS Scotland's future and leadership, have both been withdrawn. Composite G, bargain for better social care, and Composite P, justice for Palestine, end arms sales to Israel, are not yet agreed. All other composites have been agreed by the organisations involved. I would refer you to the arrangements outlined in the first Standing Orders report regarding emergency motions. Please remember that in the event of a time block debate not taking up its full time slot, Standing Orders would hope to bring forward motions from other parts of the order of business. This will only be done with the prior knowledge of the affiliates involved. However, the cooperation of delegates in this regard would be appreciated. Please note that, as indicated to all affiliates and delegates in the first Standing Orders report, the Standing Orders Committee is proposing that speaking times be set at 4 minutes for movers and 2 minutes for seconders and supporting speakers. Speakers wishing to be taken in a debate may line up on the right-hand side of the stage, looking towards the stage. This does not guarantee that the President will be able to take all speakers. If speakers are ready to come to the podium as soon as they are called, Congress, this year we have a particularly full agenda with 116 motions submitted. Business will be speeded up significantly if speakers make their way to the front in good time to be called and if they stick to their speaking times. I would also like to remind delegates to speak into the microphone and that the audio levels are set at an optimum level to accommodate access needs. Please note, to avoid an unhelpful build-up of paperwork on seats in the hall, tellers have been instructed to only distribute papers to delegates who are in their seats at the time of distribution. Those who do not have any relevant papers may collect them at the STUC information desk, which is situated in the foyer. As with previous years, only materials which have been approved by the Standing Orders Committee may be distributed within the hall. Please note that the hall will be cleared of all materials at the end of each day's proceedings. Delegates and visitors will note that there is a range of exhibitions located in the Marriott Hall and corridors. Delegates are encouraged to visit all exhibitions at some stage during Congress. Delegates, to avoid disturbances within the hall, you are asked to ensure that all mobile phones and similar devices are switched off, turned to silent, or put on settings which prevent them interfering with Congress business. With that, I move the first and second Standing Orders reports, and I hope you have a good Congress.
Thank you, Willie. I now take that Congress has agreed the reports and endorsed the Congress tellers as listed on page 4 of the 2025 Congress programme and General Council report. For reference, the tellers are Karen Dennis, GMB, Mark Fleming, EIS, Stuart Graham, Unison, Alec Kennedy, Unite, Laura McLean, USDO, and Sharon McLean, PCS. Congress. We now move to the obituary section within our agenda, and I now invite Congress to acknowledge all our trade union colleagues who have died since last Congress with a minute's silence in respect. Thank you. Thank you, Congress. Thank you, delegates. As you know, today is International Workers' Memorial Day. I ask that all delegates join the General Council at 12 noon on the steps of the Caird Hall so that we can mark this important day together. Fringe meetings will start as normal at 12:30, and one of the fringe meetings that's not in your programme that you should be aware of is the Unison Fringe Let's Talk About Assisted Dying, which will be in the Malmaison at 12:30. Thank you, Congress. I will open the debates. Delegates, you will now start business of Congress with Section 9 of the Agenda, Equality and Social Justice. I call Composite B, Strategy for Tackling the Far Right, covering amended motions 2, 92 and motions 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 and 100. Before I ask the mover of the composite, can I draw your attention to the additional General Counsel statement which was distributed this morning? I now invite Andrea Bradley to move the composite on behalf of the General Counsel.
Thanks very much, President. Andrea Bradley moving Composite B on countering the far right on behalf of the STUC General Counsel. Congress, over the last year we've witnessed a broad political shift to the right. At home and abroad we're now hearing debates that we thought were over, and we watch laws and policies passed that would have been unthinkable not so long ago. And this shift hasn't come out of nowhere. It's the direct result of a series of failures, the most important being the failure of our politicians, including our governments at Holyrood and Westminster, to prioritise working people. It's the failure of parts of the media to challenge bigoted and racist narratives, and fundamentally, it's the result of the super-rich drive for more personal wealth to amass, to hoard and to count. With public services rationed, the money in our pockets worth less, and the outlook for our kids looking bleak, no wonder people are disheartened, disillusioned and angry. Failure by local and national governments to address these concerns and take decisions that would make a material difference in people's lives have left a vacuum, one that the populist right has been quick to seize upon, preying on people's insecurities and fears and whipping up anger and blame. Last year we witnessed appalling scenes of racist and Islamophobic rioting, targeting Muslim, black and minority ethnic communities, wreaking destruction and spreading mayhem and alarm. These textbook tactics of the far right look to divide working class communities, blaming asylum seekers for housing shortages and NHS waiting times, blaming our LGBT+ community for fracturing the nuclear family, and even blaming scientists and experts for misinformation. Classic scapegoating of vulnerable groups and rejection of reason. This is real-life consequences for people. Hate crime has soared and communities are more fearful. In schools across Scotland, teachers are dealing with dangerous behaviours and attitudes stemming from so-called influencers streaming misogyny online and hate 24/7. We're seeing the far right target people in organisations and groups as diverse as loyalist organisations, community safety groups, climate denial groups and sports fan groupings. We're clear, of course, that ordinary citizens associated with these groups shouldn't automatically be labelled far right or racist. Colleagues, our job is to unite people, not to push people further away or to further polarise the debate. Similarly, while Nigel Farage is a fraudster and an enemy of workers' rights, who's willing to use every racist slur and stereotype there is to win power, it would be wrong to condemn people thinking of voting reform as racist. The picture is far more complex than that. People are desperately looking for an alternative after decades of political failure that they live the consequences of daily. We need to take practical actions to address this challenge. We need to offer solutions that build unity, to spell out solutions to economic challenges, to change the narrative and point the finger at the super rich, to educate, not ostracise, and to make the case for democracy by showing its power in the workplace. So we will do our bit, taking to the streets when needed, but importantly providing our reps with the resources and training that they need to build workplace unity and build community campaigns with our trade union councils. As noted in the General Counsel statement issued this morning, we're calling on everyone to take action while there are such live existential threats to democracy and to rights. In good faith, the STUC has engaged in the summit to tackle the far right, but this Scottish Government summit can't just be a talking shop. We won't let either the UK or the Scottish Government off the hook. We resolutely will not let them use this debate to hide their own failings. If they're serious about protecting democracy and social cohesion, they need to show it by actual deeds, not just words. The STUC General Counsel remains unequivocally clear that we need to punch up, not down. We need wealth taxes to fund the investment needed in our public services, and we need our politicians to be wholly accountable as proof that democracy isn't broken. Building working class unity is nowhere on the agenda of the far right. It's the thing that scares them most, but it's our job, comrades, to make it happen. Please support the composite.
Thanks very much, Andrea. I now call any SUWT to second the motion. Could you go to the rostrum at the front, please? Thanks, Delegate.
Hi, Kim Glanders, NESUWT. The world is a scary place at the moment, and for those of us with a protected characteristic, or two or three, it's downright terrifying. The othering of people with protected characteristics is constant and it's tiring. I'm tired. I'm a woman and a member of the LGBT+ community, and I just want one day when I don't feel like my very existence is being attacked. As a teacher in secondary, I'm absolutely disgusted by the casual use of bigoted language by our young people. I thought things were getting better. I felt safer, but we're going backwards. The erosion of rights, the removing of safeguardings, and the lack of consequences make many young people believe that this language and behaviour is acceptable. The way that boys are speaking about girls and women teachers is spine-chilling. I don't have to listen to you. You're an effing woman. Why do you even have a job? Women are only good for one thing. You've got quite the attitude on you for a girl, said to me. It doesn't matter if they say no. Children. These are children that are saying these things. So why has it become so bad? I believe social media is a huge influence. They consume 30-second sound bites of right-wing hate and vitriol like an addiction. The right wing are desperate for you to believe that as a member of the LGBT+ community that I'm trying to corrupt children. It's not me that's doing the corrupting. I can honestly barely get the kids to stay in their seat. When do you think I've got time to teach them to be gay? They have, however, taken time to learn all the slurs about LGBT people that they can, and they are very free and generous with their use. Children grow up to be adults. They are in my classroom at the moment, but they will be standing next to you in the workplace soon. We must stand together and fight against the far right. They're coming for us first, but they're going to come for you next. By standing together and supporting each other, we can ensure that they lose the grip they have on our young people. We give them a safe and nurturing future where they can thrive. Don't let them steal those futures and that future happiness before they've even had a chance to experience it. We can't allow them to go after the children, and that's where it's starting. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Delegate. I now call Edinburgh Trade Union Council to speak in support of the composite.
Claire Robertson, Edinburgh Trade Union Council, supporting Composite B. The far right sow their seeds of hate through disinformation and misinformation. They use their positions of power to spin and spread mistrust and othering of groups in our society. They pick up on the weakest and the most marginalised, and they target and blame different people from themselves for the lack of housing, for the cuts to the services and underfunding of the structures that we hold dear, which is wholly the fault of the mismanagement of previous governments. They lie. We must urgently take every opportunity to call out their rhetoric as lies. We must show our outrage that those in power have allowed the creation of billionaires by the rape of the world's resources and from the labour of the working class. We must stand against child poverty, the removal of supports for those with disability or in retirement. And the way we do that is to organise together now. This is our line, and they will not cross it. Delegates, we must forget the things that divide us, because we are facing an enemy in the far right who have huge wealth and who will not stop until we are all under the heel of their oppression. Look through these ways to stand against our enemy and resolve to fight them until we win. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. I now call Clydebank Trade Union Council to speak in support of the composite.
Comrades Tom Morrison, Clydebank Trade Union Council, and just to report a wee bit of fascist activity in Clydebank. Yes, Clydebank of all places, the home of Red Clydeside, the UCS working. Part of the Alternative have been hanging up banners displaying race hatred and handing out their leaflets. The Trades Council have leafleted the town. We've held stalls to have discussions with the people on the streets. We put pressure on the politicians to contact the police over hate crimes, but they come back and talk about the spin the free speech line. We wrote to the Clydebank Post and got a front page spread, and I hope you can maybe see it on the screen up there. This report drew a lot of comment on the paper's Facebook page, some condemning the racist dog whistles, while others were asking what was racist about what was on display and seeing condemnation as an attack on free speech. It's disappointing to see people understandably alienated from the system but drawing the wrong conclusion and echoing well-heeled racist politicians who claim they're anti-establishment here and across the pond. Banners claimed that our pensioners received the inadequate reward after a lifetime of work, which is true compared with other nations. Meanwhile, these asylum seekers get everything. In reality, people fleeing poverty, environmental disasters and war, many of which Britain had a hand in starting, get the absolute basics would hardly cover the essentials. Allowing them to work and pay taxes would be a first step towards undermining these allegations. What about the claim that free speech has been curtailed? This is something repeatedly claimed by the far right. However, if that rhetoric is restricting others from being able to go about safely in their business, then these allegations should be curtailed. I've run out of time, but just to say that part of our work, we've got an anti-cuts meeting coming up. We've got Rosa and Andrea speaking on the 26th of May. Also, we've got there's a by-election in Clydebank the 15th of May, where Reform are standing, and the Trades Council has produced a leaflet, and we're going to go around that constituency, putting it through doors. Thanks very much. Support the composite.
Thanks, Tom. I now call East Kilbride and South Lanarkshire Trade Union Council to speak in support of the composite.
Congress, over the next few days we'll see robust debates and discussions tackling a number of issues. The degradation of public services, workplace conditions and pay, the constant vilification, criminalisation of working class members of our community. This all feeds in to the issues that are raised in this composite. And in passing this today, what we do is we'll set an ideological foundation for the future debates that we'll have over the next few days as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. I now call the STUC Black Workers Conference to speak in support of the composite.
Thank you. Talat Ahmed, Co-Vice Chair of the Black Workers Committee, supporting Composite B. Delegates, I'm sure that many of you are aware that in Glasgow there was a racist attack that took place last week against an Asian young man. Before that, here in Dundee, again there was a horrific racial attack against another young Asian man. And this is not at all surprising. You know, when Andrea moved this composite, she referenced what we saw last summer, the scenes of pogroms, of race riots that took place in many cities in England. I am English and I was in England last summer, and I tell you, it was not at all edifying. And for the first time in my life, I felt scared and conscious about my skin colour in a way that I have never done before in my life, and I don't want to ever feel like that again. The fact that we have this toxic narrative, of course, should come as no surprise. Other delegates have already referenced the threat of Reform UK, and they are an ever-present existential threat to us. Standing in the local elections, their toxic politics. Farage last week in his election broadcast said that if they come to power, they are going to appoint a minister for deportations. Minister for deportations. That is 1930s Nazi-esque as far as I am concerned, and it sends a chill up my spine, and it should do to everybody in here. They had an election poster against a Union Jack with 3 angelic, white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls saying, "Save our white children." This is the kind of filthy, racist rhetoric and reality that we are dealing with. And this is why this composite is absolutely critical. We have to reject the politics of scapegoating and reject the toxic politics of divide and rule. That's why it is critical to challenge them at the ballot box. You know, I applaud the Trades Council for the leafleting that they're going
Thanks,
to be
Delegate.
doing.
Could you wind up, please?
I will wind up on this. Support this composite. Make sure we stand united to support all the initiatives for anti-racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. I now call the STUC LGBT Plus conference to speak in support of the composite. Thank you.
Good morning, Congress. I'm the 9th speaker on this, and all my colleagues and comrades have said everything that I was going to say, so I'm going to keep this very short and sweet. My name is Anne Cameron Burns. I'm from the STUC LGBT conference, speaking on this composite. And I think I just want to say one thing for our younger delegates. If you're not aware of a poem by a pastor called Martin Nuremberg, I think his surname is, sorry for not pronouncing it right, and this is the thing that I would just like to leave with you, is the fact, it's a poem, it's called And Then They Came For Me, and look it up, because this is what is happening. Unless we stand together, comrades, against this far right, then we will lose. We have to do this collectively. In the last sentence, or the last part of his poem, he says, they came for the Jews and they did not speak out because I was not Jewish or black or LGBT or disabled. I'm adding that wee bit in, that's not in the poem. And then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. Comrades, please support this composite. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. I now call the STUC Disabled Workers Conference to speak in support of the composite.
Mary Finn, GMB Scotland, speaking on Composite B for the Disabled Workers Committee Conference. Sadly, we have seen a rise in right-wing options across the world. You only need to look at the USA and Donald Trump, to see the disturbing changes he has made in his short time in the office. His decision to roll back diversity, equality and inclusion programmes have had a devastating effect on people with disabilities. The mocking of a disabled journalist is a perfect example of his lack of respect for others. For the hearing impaired and the American Sign Language content have been removed from the White House, further alienating people. Negative attitudes are crossing the Atlantic to the UK. Only last year, the Reform UK Party in their manifesto suggested cuts to public services and benefits, and with many proposals mirroring those of Trump. The only discrimination shown towards people with any disability in our country is increasing at an alarming rate. And although protected by the Equality Act 2010, the right wing appears to have no fears for their actions. In Germany, the question of educating young disabled people in mainstream establishments was approached, and Rishi Sunak's remark about the sick note culture only adds fuel to the flame. The social media are giving an instant performance to the views of what anyone wants to say, and some platforms without appropriate moderation of enforcement. This allows a far-right message into the homes of impressionable young people who could be the future leaders of this country. We must stop this increase of discrimination before it gets any worse. We thank the STUC Disabled Workers Committee for their support for disabled workers, and we ask the STUC General Council to help push back against the far-right narratives to ensure the protection of our rights. Please support.
Thank you, Delegate. I now call PCS to speak in support of the composite.
Good morning, comrades. VJ Meneses Jackson for PCS Union. Conference, when you take away secure employment and pay stagnates and falls, when educational opportunities dwindle, when health outcomes drop off and inequality skyrockets, then out of the breeding ground of desperation and disillusionment, people will grasp for an alternative, one that Farage or Trump or Orban or Maloney or any of their ilk are happy to provide. Austerity has opened the door and the far right are on the march in the US and across Europe. We need to fight the far right with socialism, with our policies and our ideas, with public investment, with jobs, housing and healthcare. We have to inspire people that a new and better world is not only possible, but better than hope alone, possible through us, the labour movement, and the collective agency of our organised efforts to bring it about. That our class can be in charge of the decisions affecting our own lives, in our own workplaces and communities. That we can tackle the problems that capitalism has created and is incapable of solving, like the climate crisis. And that even in the short term, it is possible to make vast improvements in our society and directly to our material conditions by taxing corporations and the rich and redistributing the enormous wealth that we workers create. To be convinced that socialism requires political and economic education, to be convinced that the road that leads to fascism requires no more than the dejection that things may get worse, but at least it won't be as bad if you get rid of the person over there who's holding you back or stealing your share, that it's not the fault of bosses or landlords, but migrants or Muslims or trans people. We have had decades of demonization of minorities by the right-wing media, and successive governments have not only stoked these attacks with their rhetoric, but enacted them in legislation. As trade unionists, anti-racists, feminists and internationalists, we must fight fascism on all fronts, and I know we will fight them in the streets if we must, but we can only defeat fascism by ending the conditions of injustice and squalor that now, as a century ago, are feeding it. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. I now call the EIS to speak in support of the composite.
Good morning, Congress. Dan Holland, proud to be representing the EIS and support Composite Motion B, first time delegate and speaker. As teachers and lecturers, we have seen firsthand the effects that the alt-right have had on our young people, with viral videos shared on unaccountable platforms doing significant harm to the expectations of young men. From 22 to 23, compensation awards for EIS members who suffered at the hands of violent assaults increased by over 80%. Increasingly, it's our members with protected characteristics that are challenged, abused and assaulted. The post-Thatcherite cult of the individual has poisoned our communities and has had a deleterious effect on our most marginalised. And the narrative of neoliberalism has been very successful in disarticulating the idea of class solidarity from our arguments. As trade unionists, we should be developing the search for social collectivism. And in last year's EIS Feeler campaign to better the pay for college lecturers, college branches organised community events that reached out and spread the word to a much wider audience. It was just a small part of the campaign, but it helped us win. And it's these ideas that can help us push back against the far right, as is the excellent Trade Unions into Communities initiative. I wish to draw the attention of Congress to the current EIS campaign of Stand Up for Quality Education, but in particular Stand Up for Quality Music Education. One aspect of this motion is that Congress believes that culture is a site of anti-racism and anti-fascism. It is of no coincidence that our education system is plagued by cuts to the arts and music. It is always the poorest who suffer these cuts the most. This is the kind of thing that makes young people lose their place and purpose within our culture. Finally, it is education that will be critical to pushing back against these forces. We need campaign and educational materials that aspire to show the stake that our young people could have in society and impress upon them that it is not immigrants or trans people who are causing our public services to collapse. It is the wealthiest who have seen their billions increase exponentially since the pandemic. We need some radical political education to avoid reproducing the status quo. Thanks.
Thank you, Delegate. Congress, I do have space for a couple of more speakers in this debate. That's the speakers on the composite concluded. I now call on any other supporting or opposing speaker.
Okay. John Dennis, Secretary of Dumfries and Galloway Trade Union Council. At roughly 2 weeks' notice, we had our third counter-demonstration against some Farage supporters who called for the third time a demonstration against what they called illegal immigration. There's been a social media campaign in Dumfries, and area, and I believe in a whole lot of other areas, alleging that our refugees seeking asylum locally are taking pictures with their mobile phones of women and children in parks. This has gone rife throughout the community, and we had to counter that. We've done this in 3 ways. We set up our own Solidarity Dumfries Facebook page, and it's already got 200 members. More importantly, we got 2 press releases out featured in both local newspapers, and we sent out the text of that to all 400 of our contacts and asked them to spread it as widely as possible on social media and through emails. The result was we cut their numbers right down. We got 150 out against them on Saturday. They had only about 30, of whom about 10 were school kids brought along by their ridiculous parents. We had 14 local speakers, 2 singers, 3 amusing poets, and as a finishing touch, as it was close to May Day, we gave out song sheets and everybody sang together Freedom Come All Ye and International, Billy Bragg's modern version. They were so annoyed about our success, because we used a very powerful PA system, that a breakaway group from them started coming over towards us and shouting racist abuse. The result, one of them got arrested and a whole lot more got their names taken by the police. No problems at all on our side. So with that, I just wanted to give that bit of positive news on how you can fight back against those who support Farage.
Thank you, Delegate, for that speech. Unison, Davina, thank you.
Good morning, President, Congress, Davina Rankin, Unison, speaking in support of Composite B. Congress, we all know the far right thrive by exploiting concerns and sowing division and hate. The values that drive the far right sit opposite to everything we believe in and fight for through our trade union work and community activism. Their aim is simple. They want to take us back to the romanticised version of 1950s Britain. A Britain where women were sacked for having the audacity to get married, a Britain where men were the head of the traditional household, and a Britain where people who looked like me were anywhere else apart from here. We have seen in recent council by-elections a significant increase in Reform's vote, polling at levels that the BNP could only have dreamt of. In the recent Glasgow by-election, a councillor attempted to spread fear and division around a rumour that a disused care home would be used to home asylum seekers. In an open letter, he implied that children, families and older people would be at risk from asylum seekers. We actually saw graffiti pop up in Glasgow stating "No blacks" and "Save the children" and houses around the East End, putting black communities at fear and worried when they're going to work. The far-right pose a real threat to black people in workplaces where we are delivering vital services, as well as when we are making our journeys to work. And I'm proud of the work that Unison does all year round to tackle the far-right, through the work we do to expose their constant myths and also to expose their threat to our rights. We support a range of anti-fascist organisations and provide training and support for branches and activists. On my last point, President, as a trade union movement, we really do have a unique position where we have the power to unite workers across all communities against the far right's attempts to exploit division, sow hatred and spread hate. But we need to turn the words in the composite into action, so please don't just pass the composite, go back to your workplaces and do the work. And if you're free this evening, come along to the Fringe at 5:30. Thank you, I support the motion.
Thanks, Davina. With no other speakers in this debate, that was Composite B, Strategy for Tackling the Far Right, covering amended motions 2 and 92 and motions 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 and 100. Please note that the General Council recommends support. I will now move to the vote. Can I see all those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Composite B, Strategy for Tackling the Far Right, covering amended motions 2, 92 and motions 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 and 100 is carried. Thank you. Congress, I'll now move to motion 93, Rise of the Far Right, and I invite UCU to move the motion.
Congress President Jeanette Finlay, UCU Scotland. In 23-24, 31% of referrals under the prevent duty came from the education sector. Around a third of all referrals relate to right-wing extremism, and that's grown over the last 8 years. So we have data beyond the evidence of our own eyes showing that this is a growing problem, and most disturbingly, it has a foothold among the young. Now, it would be foolish to suggest that there's not always been a right-wing element within distinct parts of Scottish society and around social groupings and communities. For example, the inherent racism and militant bigotry of loyalist groupings in Scotland, with their frequent intimidatory marches past Catholic churches, is an endemic and very long-standing problem which the left and the organised trade union movement has largely ignored. As a consequence, we find ourselves in a situation where individuals associated with those organisations had the ability, the standing and the contacts to organise the anti-immigration rally which took place, or the far right tried to hold in George Square last September. Happily, that attempt was met with and defeated by an overwhelming response from progressive forces, including the trade union movement. However, you don't defeat ideas with a show of numbers on the street, as necessary as that is and will continue to be. What we're now observing is a coalescing of a range of groupings which in themselves could be seen as addressing legitimate areas of concern. They're coming together as a more sinister development, and citizens who have those concerns are now prey to far-right propaganda. It's also the case that many of those people are our members. Not everyone associated with those organisations or ideas, however, is irredeemably lost to reason. It becomes then our responsibility to engage directly with people to offer honest and genuine alternatives, because if we do not, they will be, and indeed already are, walking right into the hands of reform, which is successfully mopping up these groupings as we sit here today. Reform is, as the motion sets out, attempting to bring far-right ideas into the political mainstream. We need to be presenting an alternative. We can't change people's minds by shouting at them or refusing to address their concerns. And that doesn't mean conceding ground or adopting softer versions of their views. It means genuinely offering an alternative vision of society which places working people at the centre. It means challenging false narratives and propaganda and equipping our reps and members with the facts and the arguments to combat the spread of these ideas. Comrades, people genuinely believe the lies about immigration and how immigrants are treated by the state that are spread by the right. My husband's a Unite member who drives a black taxi in Glasgow. He hears these comments every single day, multiple times a day, about the life of luxury that immigrants allegedly are given on arrival here. He quietly and patiently challenges people with a simple statement, well, that's not true, is it? And I'm not saying that in a short taxi journey he changes their minds, but at least they've been exposed to somebody who doesn't just nod and agree and say, oh, I read that on Facebook, or oh, I know somebody who knows somebody. So we do need to be on the streets to oppose the right, and we do need to celebrate a different vision in our anti-racist events, like the St Andrews Day Anti-Racist March. But we also need to talk to people. And as a movement, we're best placed to do that. We have reps in workplaces all over the country, and we need to equip them with the arguments, with the alternative vision, and we need to give them the confidence to speak to people one by one and show them that they're being lied to, and that immigrants or other people who look different or act different or have a different religion are not their enemy. That message of unity of working people in pursuit of a better life needs to be repeated over and over. Comrades, if we don't, I think we all know where that can go. So we genuinely don't have an alternative. I urge you to support motion 93.
Delegate. Can I call the STUC Black Workers Conference to second the motion?
President Talis Ahmed, co-chair of the STC Black Workers Committee, seconding this motion. And I want to particularly speak to the element of the prospect of what's going to happen at the Scottish elections next year. When the motion says that Reform could win as many as 12 seats, this is a real frightening prospect. The local elections take place in 3 days' time in England, and I fear that there is going to be a huge number of seats that Reform are going to take. And that is going to mean a seismic shift in the politics of this country. And therefore, obviously, as we heard earlier, how critical it is to take on the politics of reform at every turn and cranny that we come across. And it's for this reason why also in the motion it talks about the St Andrew's Day. You know, when we have the St Andrew's Day mobilisation in November this year, that has got to be a call to arms as a countdown to our movement challenging reform at the Scottish elections next year. It's also the reason why on the 31st of May there is a summit which is being hosted by Stand Up to Racism, which I'm really pleased that Ros is going to be speaking at, Humza Yousaf is going to be speaking there, as well as Neil Mackay and Qasim Sheikh, the cricketer, which is a summit that is called to take on the far right and to oppose reform. And also, finally, delegates, it's really imperative that we remember one of the most vulnerable communities here, which of course are refugees and asylum seekers. At the end of June, it is World Refugee Week, and on Saturday, the 21st of June, there is a national demonstration here in Glasgow for saying refugees welcome here, which is being hosted jointly by the Scottish Refugee Council and Stand Up to Racism. And it's really important that we as a movement are there with our banners in all our colours of the rainbow to say refugees are welcome here. Support this motion.
Thank you, Delegate. Congress, the General Council is asking the mover of the motion to remit the motion. Do you agree? Agreed. Thank you. Congress, I'm moving on to a short film clip, Everyone to Kenmure Street. Congress, before the lunch, we are going to watch this short film, Everyone to Kenmure Street. As you will remember, delegates, in 2021, an immigration enforcement van attempted to deport 2 residents from the south side of Glasgow. The community rallied around the van, preventing it from leaving, and held it in a non-violent space until the men were released. The film by the makers of Ne Passaran has been selected for the Works in Progress showcase during the Cannes Film Festival. We're going to watch this clip now. It'll take around 7 minutes, so hopefully you will enjoy it.
Well, I've lived in that close for 32 years, and you could write a novella about the couples, the families that have come and gone.
My partner, Liv, was
41 weeks pregnant, so I was a week past my due date.
So, you know, the birth pool was inflated, the plastic sheeting was down.
And I had a maternity appointment, so I left the house quite early.
I decided that I'd spend the day writing.
Part of our flat looks down onto Kenmure Street, and that's where I work over. We study there. I'm conscious there's some sort of commotion going on the landing.
I was working at the kitchen table and I heard some noise. Because it was round about Eid, you know, I thought it was maybe kids playing outside in the back garden. So I went out and looked.
It's not the kind of thing you expect to see when you open your curtains in the morning. I was quite surprised actually at how blatant it was. The van had immigration enforcement, I think, in big letters on the side. I messaged some friends and I tweeted about it as well, saying precisely what do you do in this situation, because I had no idea.
I opened up the door and I was saying, Lagvi, what's going on? And he was being marched down the stairs by Home Office officials, you know, heads down, don't talk to you or anything.
And so I just, still in my pyjamas, ran out onto the street to see what was going on.
I just started sending messages out to anyone that I thought would be up for coming down. Babysitting exchange groups, reading groups. There was like a WhatsApp group for our building.
Eid was going to be one of those days that was going to be really special. I mean, I guess it would be the same for anyone celebrating Christmas or Diwali. Pandemic, the world, and then an opportunity to come together. I started getting these text messages that there was an immigration van in Kenmure Street. Now, I don't live too far, just round the corner pretty much. I don't have anything to do yet. All the family are still asleep. I can go, I could do this. There'll be a situation, but maybe it'll just be a couple of hours. I'll see how it goes. Surely, you know, what's really going to happen on Eid Day? I got there within 3 minutes of receiving the text message. I think one of the things that have become quite evident in recent years is how important it is to document things yourself. And I just started live recording.
This is immigration. And these people are here. I think this is part of that new Home Office dawn raid thing.
As soon as I woke up, I looked at my phone and I had a text saying, raid on Kenmure Street. Can people get there now? Jumped out of bed, got dressed, walked straight to Kenmure Street.
I didn't really think about what I was going to do when I went out onto the street. I just knew that I had to do something. When I was sitting on the ground and the police kept turning up, this is when I was like, oh God, what have I done?
Soon after we arrived, somebody whispered to me that there's somebody under the van.
Well, this man just ran underneath to stop the van. If it wasn't for him, the van would have left. You know, it would have happened so quickly, and his actions delayed things. It delayed things enough for people to come round.
So I thought it was actually an accident. I thought it was an ambulance and 2 police cars. So I was telling myself not to be nosy and not to look. And just as I was getting on my bike, I had a little glance and then I noticed someone was filming it. And I thought, that's odd, why would you film an accident? There must be something else happening. And then I realised the person filming it was my colleague and friend, Tab, from the bowling green. I didn't know the guys, but their next door neighbour was a good friend of mine, Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan. One of the neighbours, who's a mutual friend, came, you know, up to me and said, Tab, this is awful, what's going on? These are my neighbours, they're such good people, and it's terrible.
You couldn't have actually done anything that was conceivably as provocative as to launch a Home Office eviction on the day of Eid in Scotland's most diverse community.
So he put me in the picture quickly about what it was about. These two men had been here for 10 years. They're part of the community and they're now in this van. So that was enough for me.
Congress, the Director, Felipe Bustos Sierra, is with us today, and I would encourage you to support the making of this film. It is a hugely important piece of work that could be distributed widely within our communities as we lead into the 2026 Holyrood elections. Another really helpful resource would be the trade union movement getting behind the filmmaker Felipe to make this film a reality, and let's get it distributed as widely as we can. So please, if you can, the leaflets on your tables, take it back to your branches, your trade unions, your trades councils, and make a financial donation to get this film completed. Thank you. Congress, we are now going to end the first morning session of day one of Congress 2025. Before you all rush off, I have a couple of announcements, so bear with me. I am encouraging the delegates and visitors to visit the stall and Congress exhibition located outside the hall during your lunch break. There are a number of fringe meetings taking place at 12:30, and the details can be found in your Congress programme, and I've already alerted you to the Unison Fringe, which is not in the programme. I ask delegates to be back in the hall for 2 p.m. prompt. We will begin the afternoon session with the presentation of this year's Union Rep Awards, followed by the First Minister's address to Congress. Thereafter, we will continue with Section 9 of the Agenda, Equality and Social Justice. As you leave the hall, there will be a collection for the Scottish Pensioners Forum. And I'll remind you, colleagues, that we are holding a short event outside the Care Hall to mark International Workers' Memorial Day, and asking delegates to make their way now. Have a good lunch break.